Hey guys, Drutter here. It's the 28th of December 2013, and I hope your holiday season has been going well and continues to go well. Canada Post is having some price increases along with other changes they're making in the first 2 or 3 months of 2014. And I don't want to talk too much about Canada Post specifically, but I do want to talk about those price increases in general and what it means in the inflation versus deflation debate. Here you can see a graph that I've drawn up. I got the data from this from a variety of websites. There is no real one site that posts the information that this graph contains, and I haven't found a similar graph anywhere. I just found the information itself in raw data form here and there spread over all of the internet. I will put the best website with the best data that I found down below and a link to the Wikipedia entry on Canada Post, but unfortunately there is no one authority on this issue. And of course Canada Post themselves does not post their historical price chart like this. It's kind of damning to show what's happened over the past, let's see how many, 60 or 70 years. The chart starts on the left in 1943, and as you can see here it sort of skips a few years because nothing was happening. So this long flat stretch is actually even a little bit longer and flatter than it looks on here. I just couldn't fit it all onto one graph, but it was very, very flat. This measures the price for a domestic letter mail stamp, sort of first class, regular stamp, you know, just the basic stamp. And what we can do is put on a few key points there that show key dates when specific things happened. Here in 1970, the stamp price had risen from 4 cents in 1943 to 6 cents. And after 1970, you can see we entered a period where there was inflation in the stamp prices, and indeed there was inflation in other parts of the market as well, because as you'll remember, in 1970 and in the late 1960s, silver was removed from currency, and then the world's economies were taken off the gold standard completely in 1970 and 71, and that did lead to an inflationary time. In 1980 in Canada, there was some severe recession going on. Unemployment was way up, and inflation was really bad, so that's what that really steep area here is in the early 1980s. And then in 1982, which is right about there at the top, sort of this really steep part, as it became a little bit less steep, was when Canada Post became a Crown Corporation. And a Crown Corporation is a company or a corporation, obviously, that exists within the Commonwealth. That is, the countries that were at one point owned by Britain. And now a Crown Corporation is a corporation that has to profit. It must turn a profit, no matter what. And that profit goes to the government and, of course, to the Queen of England as well. I don't know why that's still done, but that's what Crown Corporations do, is they make money for the government and for the Crown. Another aspect of Crown Corporations is that there is no competition allowed. So they are a legal monopoly, a mandated monopoly. There's no competition allowed, so they set their own prices and they can do whatever they want. Of course, with no competition, that means that prices always go up. And I also see on this chart, there wasn't a single year in history where the price of a stamp came down at all. It's always stayed either the same or gone up every year. In the mid-1990s, there was a period worldwide of low inflation, and you can see that here on the chart as well. And then in 2009, the global financial crisis began, and that's where this chart goes from fairly steep to even steeper. And then, of course, here between 2013 and 2014, there's a massive jump, and that was just announced about a week ago. As Canada Post said, you know, stamp prices are not keeping up with the rate of inflation. We have to make a very large jump and also several major changes in our business plan, which I'll talk about next. So we can see how closely letter mail stamp prices are tied to inflation. In fact, the price of a stamp is included in the basket of goods that's used to calculate the inflation rate, since everybody needs stamps. The economy itself, of course, is very, very closely tied with the post, and if there were no way to transport information or goods and services around the country, the economy would very quickly come to a halt and die. Personally, I've been running an online business that ships every single order I get using the stamps that are indicated on this chart. I've had tens of thousands of orders over the years since I started in 2001, and every single one of them has used Canada Post's stamps. When I started, stamps were 47 cents, and now in 2014, they're going up to $1. Now there is a way to get stamps at about 85 cents if you're willing to buy in bulk and if you're willing to submit some of your privacy and join certain government lists and jump through hoops and so forth. But for most people, the price of a stamp is going up to $1. International stamps went from $1.05 to $2.50 during that time. So since I went into business, which isn't all that long ago, my largest cost, postage, has much more than doubled. Along with the massive price increase, Canada Post has announced other changes coming in 2014, including decreased privacy for citizens and the complete end of all mail delivery. That's right, Canadians will now no longer get mail delivery. We have to deliver our own mail, which is actually what the Post was set up to do in the first place, and no one else is allowed to deliver mail because, as I mentioned, there's no competition allowed. They are a mandated monopoly. But they aren't even going to do the thing that they do anymore. And they're going to be laying off a very large portion of their employees. And still almost doubling the stamp prices from a year ago? Canada Post says that these changes won't even result in them being financially viable now or even in the future, according to their propaganda video just released, and I'll link that below. A quick summary, Canada Post's stamp prices have always been very closely tied with inflation, and currently show we are heading into a period of hyperinflation. We're told by the government that inflation is less than 1%, but in things that the everyday person needs, like food and postage, it is actually far above 10% and escalating very quickly. With the average person's income holding steady, at best, and in most cases decreasing right now, the standard of living in the West is rapidly declining. Here's a postage stamp that was from Germany during the last Great Depression, and as you'll see it says 200 marks in white there, and then over top was stamped en masse. They did huge sheets of these and re-stamped them 2 million marks. So that was a massive hyperinflation that they had back in Weimar, which was what Germany used to be called before Hitler got a hold of it. And there are other examples of countries that have done the same thing, restamping their stamps during periods of hyperinflation. And the same thing happens with currency as well, of course. This you won't see today. You won't see any stamps that are going to be remarked, of course, because everything can just be done digitally now. And price increases can be done simply by putting a new entry in the computer, and a stamp suddenly goes from 63 cents to $1 in the space of about 1 month. Or in fact, it can do it overnight, as they are doing here in Canada. I'm not trying to make the case that here in the West we are seeing the same rate of hyperinflation that was seen at the peak of the hyperinflation in Germany in the 1930s, or perhaps Zimbabwe in 2007, or other countries that have experienced hyperinflation in the last 100 years. But I am certainly saying that the rate of inflation has gone far, far above the posted rate of inflation, especially for things that people really need in their day-to-day lives. And that's really what matters when we're talking about the standard of living. And the standard of living in the West is going down very rapidly right now. And that's what this video is about. Talk to you guys soon.